Hello, Soften here. Today I was looking for something interesting to watch. Something to get my blood pumping a little bit. In this holiday season, things can get kind of dreary, so an action-packed story is usually good for lifting the spirits. Thankfully, Netflix recently released a new thriller called Carry On. It's got Taron Egerton and Jason Bateman in it, and it looked similar to that movie Phone Booth, which had a pretty solid story. TJ Fixman wrote the screenplay, Jaume Collet-Serra directed the film, and as I said before, it stars Taron Egerton as TSA agent Ethan Kopech, Jason Bateman as the mysterious caller, and Sofia Carson as Ethan's girlfriend Nora. The story follows a group of terrorists attempting to get a package onto a flight. They target Ethan Kopech and threaten his girlfriend's life if he doesn't let a package through. From there, the terrorists play a game of cat and mouse with Ethan. He tries to find a way out of the situation while complying with their orders, and they try to find a way to control him completely by threatening the people around him. The writing has good emotional stakes, lots of great tense moments, and the action scenes are quite entertaining. It did take them a while to set up the story and actually get into the action, but once they're in it, it's like watching a rocket blast off. There are a few unbelievable little moments to get past, but most of the story makes sense. It's easy to follow, the motivations are properly set up, and the characters are easy to empathize with. You want the heroes to win and the villains to lose. The characters are a little bit stereotypical without much depth to them, but they work well enough for the story and get the right emotions out of it. The cast is a bit of a mixed bag with a few great performances and a lot of okay performances. Jason Bateman as the villain is great. He's calm, collected, and clearly in charge of the situation. You never doubt his veracity as a villain, and when he needs to, he flips a switch and becomes a menacing presence that's hard to contend with. Bateman makes you hate him and want to root for the heroes. Dean Norris, Theo Rossi, and Danielle Deadwyler all do a great job as well. They don't get as much screen time, but each of them brings a unique flavor to the film. Rossi is a vicious henchman who stalks around creepily, adding a threatening vibe to the situation. Norris plays a hard-nosed supervisor who gives us a really tragic moment. Deadwyler's character sits through a lot of exposition but brings that old-school hero cop trope into the mix. She's just too old for this shit. On the negative side of things, Taron Egerton and Sofia Carson aren't given a whole lot of character development or personality to play with. Their performances end up coming off as generic and somewhat boring. You're only really rooting for them because of the situation, not because they built up the proper rapport. Visually, the film is fairly basic. It takes place in an airport, and most of what we see is people having tense conversations about what will happen. Egerton and Bateman go back and forth for a while, and different situations pop up as things progress, like the cops showing up and they have to lie to get past them. The location work isn't all that special, but does the job. The cinematography gets the story across in a clear and concise manner with a few interesting shots here and there. The big standouts of the film are 2 or 3 action sequences in the second half of the film. They have a couple of fights between characters that are really well done. For example, one of them takes place in a car and sees 2 people fighting over the steering wheel with a gun. It's an exciting moment that sees them crashing into other vehicles, exchanging blows, and fighting for their lives. Sound-wise, the film uses basic instrumental tracks that perfectly encapsulate the emotion in any given scene. The songs they use are basic tones played on 1 or 2 instruments that have just enough flavor to them to color things. They bring in a simple emotion like warmth, tension, or tragedy, and inject it into the scenery in a way that doesn't take your attention away from it. There's also an original song or 2 throughout the film, but they're few and far between and don't have much impact. The music ends up being solid in the moment, but you won't remember it even minutes after hearing it. Personally, I was a little bit bored in the beginning. I found the setup very frustrating and I wasn't getting attached to Ethan or his story. Once Jason Bateman comes into it, the story picks up a lot of steam and ends up being pretty interesting. The overall plot is a little shallow, but brings out some good emotions and ends up being entertaining. The one problem I had with it was all the loose ends, but they're minor nitpicks rather than major problems. Like there's a couple of characters who are clearly involved who seem to just slip away without getting mentioned. They also never focus on the mastermind behind the attack or what their end goal was. There's a minor suggestion as to their motives, but it never gets explored and comes out in a throwaway line. In the end, I was entertained. The story isn't going to stick with me forever, but I had fun while I was watching it. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 7 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye!